What's going on, people, man? Good afternoon. It's your boy, the Boxing Lowdown here, and we are here for episode number 54, man, of the Boxing Lowdown podcast. And as always, you know what time it is. Delighted to be joined by my co-host, Mr. Controversial, the guy who you all want to hear from, Laurie from AFTV in the house, man. What is going on?
Bit of head movement there, man. Bit of Shakur Stevenson head movement for you. But yeah, I'm all good. One of my favorite times of the week. Looking forward to this show. Unfortunately, I can't be in for too long today because I've got some other AFTV commitments. But yeah, man, looking forward to chopping it up with you. And yeah, let's go. As Dillian would say, let's go, let's go.
How's everything? Everything all good otherwise?
Yeah, man, everything's all good. Am I coming across a bit darker here?
It's a bit dark, but I can still hear you, can still see you fine. Like it's not frozen like last week or anything like that. It's just a bit
trouble with the light. I might need to readjust myself.
Okay.
Let me see if I can do that. Is that any better?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can see you better.
Yeah.
Technicals, man. Technicals is what we got to do on the show, man. Yeah, that's all good. Yeah, I can see you there.
Yeah, that looks a lot better, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, listen, man. Let's get started, man. Episode number.
Weeks in Egypt under that sun.
Listen, man. Let's get started, man. Episode number 54. You know what I mean? The Boxing Lowdown podcast, and you know, we got another great show for you today. As Laurie said, we won't be here for as long as we normally are. But as you guys know, just head on into the comments, leave your comments, drop a like, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We've been stuck on 930 subs for a good few weeks now, and it's hard to move. It's hard to actually get across that line, man. But we're gonna get there. We will get there, and with your help, we will get there. So big up everybody when they enter the chat. Let's talk some boxing, man. We'll start off with Shakur Stevenson's performance last weekend against Jamel Herring, becoming a two-weight world champion at the age of just 24 years old. And listen, before the fight, I think we both predicted a Shakur Stevenson win ultimately. However, Shakur Stevenson put in a very impressive performance, more impressive than I thought he would have done. I picked him to win, but I thought he might have to overcome some adversity. However, he just really beat the brakes off Jamel Herring, man. It was a fantastic performance, winning that by 10th round stoppage. The referee stepped in and saved Herring from any more punishment. And Shakur Stevenson looked fantastic, man. He's got the WBO strap now. And, you know, the world's his oyster. 24 years old. He's got a lot to look forward to, a lot of talent, a lot of ability. We all know that. And he's going to be a rising star, no doubt. So I'm going to read this comment, Laurie, and then we'll get to your thoughts on the fight. Big up Francisco, our guy, always here. He says, good morning, brothers. Good to have you here, my bro. I got your T-shirt as well, Francisco. That's going to be put in the post this weekend. And you should get that over next week, maybe. I don't know how long it will take to get to America, actually. But I'll get your T-shirt in the post and send it over. So I've got that for you. Laurie, let's talk about Shakur Stevenson briefly, his performance. How impressed were you? And, you know, what does it say for you ultimately for Shakur?
Oh, man, I was very impressed. A virtuoso performance, almost faultless. And we did speak about this on the show last week. You're right. We both predicted that Shakur would win. I think I did predict right. I said that it would either be a wide points decision or a late stoppage. So I got that part of it right. And yeah, man, he lived up to his billing and some. I mean, I thought he was superb in every respect. I mean, the only slight thing you could say is that the punching power at that level isn't really going to frighten anybody. But then even so, he's so accurate with his shots that, you know what I mean, he just dominated Herring, man. And this was a Herring that was coming off his best win of his career against Frampton, that was talking confidently. He said he'd had a great camp. But he was no match for the young gun, man. And I think, I wouldn't say a star is born because I knew this guy was already a star. But I think even some of the naysayers, because he had a few after his last performance against Nakatili, I think it was. Some people said that they weren't impressed, but even they would have to be very impressed with that performance. I think even Archie Sharp said it was a pretty impressive performance, so that pretty much tells you. But yeah, man, it was a very impressive performance. won every round, arguably won every minute of every round. And in answer to one of your previous questions, I do think the stoppage was justified because Herring was just getting beaten up. He had a bad cut. He was all over the place. He was starting to get visibly hurt as well by the shots. So I think it was a humane stoppage by the referee. And I think Jamel Herring made a sort of token gesture. He didn't want to be pulled out. Obviously, you know what I mean, he's got his pride. He wanted to go the distance, but there was no real point in seeing any more of it, really, was it? Totally dominant performance. And when you can dominate a champion, a legit champion like that, that tells me that Shakur Stevenson, man, is right up there with the very best right now in the sport.
I saw people on Twitter were purring over Shakur Stevenson's performance, and rightly so. It was a fantastic performance. Let's backtrack to 2005. Floyd Mayweather versus Arturo Gatti put in an unbelievable performance, really beat the brakes off Arturo Gatti in that fight. Some people were comparing Shakur Stevenson's fight with Jamel Herring to that. Now, is that too far for you? Or is that like, could you see the parallels in both?
You know what? I think it's a fair enough comparison. I mean, obviously, Floyd went on to do major things. But was Gatti at that stage any better than Jamel Herring? Slightly different fighters. But like I said, Herring was coming off a great win for him. You know what I mean? A very dominant win against Carl Frampton, stopped Carl Frampton.
Yeah.
No one's done that before. So, you know what I mean? Herring was entitled to feel confident. He was confident. He said he had a great camp. He was the older man, but he said he thought he could make his size and experience and strength tell. In the end, none of that was true. So it's kind of, I don't like to draw too many comparisons to Floyd because I just think Floyd is a generational fighter. But then you never know. In a few years to come, we might be saying the same thing about Shakur Stevenson. So
yeah, I mean, I don't want to compare him to Mayweather yet, but that performance, I wouldn't say that performance was, you know, just like Mayweather Gatti, because Mayweather really, you know what I mean, that was an unbelievable performance from Mayweather. I'm not saying this wasn't from Shakur Stevenson, but Mayweather literally beat Gatti up badly, you know what I mean? And we were just seeing some unbelievable, I'd say that was a slight step up from that, but this was still, you know, not taking anything away. This was still a brilliant performance from Shakur Stevenson. He called out Oscar Valdez afterwards. Your boy, Oscar Valdez, you know, we'd love to see that. We'd love to see that fight, man. Hopefully that does happen, but I'm not confident it will. Despite both of them being under the top rank banner, I'm not confident that that fight gets made.
It's interesting to note that Oscar Valdez has been strangely silent, hasn't he? Since that Shakur Stevenson win and the call out, we've heard nothing from Valdez. You know what I mean? Or his team, Eddie Reynoso, you know what I mean? His promoter, none of them. Well, Bob Arum is actually talking about making a fight between Navarrete and Valdez. Now, Navarrete would have to come up in weight. That is ridiculous to even suggest that fight. The fight that everyone would want to see outside of maybe Valdez's camp is Shakur Stevenson and Valdez. And after Valdez had controversially beaten Robson Conceicao in his last fight, he was saying that that was the fight he wanted next. Now, all of a sudden, he's not saying anything, which is slightly surprising. I don't know. Maybe he's got to have a word with his nutritionist first. I don't know, man. But, but I don't know, man. But I think we've seen enough of Shakur Stevenson to suggest that he will start that fight as a fairly heavy favorite, in my view. What do you think?
Would you have him as a heavy favorite over Oscar Valdez?
Oh, so yeah, I would. Yeah,
a heavy favorite.
In my view, yeah. But then I had Stevenson as a heavy favorite over Jamel Herring, and I remember you saying to me that you thought it would be a lot closer. I was convinced that Shakur was going to beat him up, and he did exactly that. And
remember the fight with Bird Pelt? Remember the fight with Bird Pelt? You thought
this fight might be even easier because Oscar Valdez is not great defensively.
Remember the fight with Bird Pelt? You were picking Bird Pelt in that one. Are you underestimating Valdez?
Sorry, possibly. But then you talk about the Birchelt fight, but then subsequently we now know things that we didn't know before the Birchelt fight, if you know what I mean. Wow. And let's be honest, man, he lost to Robson Conceicao, didn't he? Let's be honest, he lost that fight.
Yeah, I thought he did.
Yeah, forget about the Peds 1 minute. We all watched the fight, man. To me, at the very least, Robson Conceicao should have got a draw. To me, he won by about 2 or 3 rounds.
Mm.
Even with the late surge by Valdez, he was getting comfortably outboxed. Robson Conceicao faded late. Valdez came on late. Now, isn't that a surprise? Him coming on late like that. Yeah, where did he get all that energy from late in the fight, I wonder? So, but anyway, listen, man, I think he could take all the peds he wants. He's not going to beat Shakur Stevenson.
Big up Harvey here. He says, evening, lads. Hope you're well. Good to have you here, my brother. He's also said, I'd have Shakur as a heavy favorite over Valdez as well.
Yeah.
Conrad Boxing in the chat, he's put here, they put too much money into Valdez to feed him to Shakur. That's another thing. Because, I'm not really seeing that being mentioned. I'm only seeing people on Twitter talk about it or Shakur talk about it. I'm not really seeing much else.
In terms of boxing skill, man, Shakur Stevenson is levels above Valdez. To me, the only way Valdez is going to win that fight would be to knock Stevenson out. And so far, Shakur has shown an excellent pair of whiskers, both as an amateur and as a pro. And after that win he had the other night, can you imagine what his confidence level must be like right now?
Yeah.
I mean, he's soaring right now, man. That's probably an easy fight for him. I know that sounds a little bit No, but you know what I'm saying? I'm looking at Shakur Stevenson as a potential generational talent. And if he's matched with Valdez, I think he will come even harder next time. I really can't see Valdez doing anything with him. I really can't. Being honest, I'm not capping. I really do think we're seeing what could be a potential superstar in boxing. Some of the stuff he's done outside the ring, in particular in the lead up to the Herring fight, he definitely needs to tone that down a bit for me. But I have to say, though, he did seem very focused and relaxed in the ring. So maybe that kind of stuff works for him. So, to me, if they fight, I would put a lot of money on Stevenson beating him, possibly stopping him as well. I could see him beating him up, bro. I'm not being funny, bro. I could see Shakur beating Valdez up. Valdez is not known for his defensive work. Yes, he's gone to Eddie Reynoso, and I think one of the reasons why he did that, he said, was to try and tighten up his defense and stuff like that. So I get that. That was probably a smart move on his part. But skills levels, man, it's levels, bro. You know what I mean? Levels. And Shakur's on a different level to it, especially after Saturday night.
Francisco says here, Val Peds is ducking, but he can box. He's got more agility than Herring. Stevenson isn't a big puncher, so it would go the distance. It would be more competitive, but I think Stevenson wins by a wide margin. And he's also said here, what about Stevenson versus Colbert? Chris Colbert, Lil B-Hop.
Yeah, but I think Colbert is just seen as a junior kind of Stevenson, as one of the guys in that kind of sphere, but not at that level, if you see what I mean. So he's in the shake-up, but he's not at that level. I've seen Colbert box. Good boxer. But listen, you got to remember Shakur Stevenson was an outstanding amateur, represented the USA at the Olympics. Yes, Valdez was an Olympian as well, but he didn't come close to winning a medal. In fact, Robson Conceicao beat him in the Olympics, I believe.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. I can't see it, bro. I can't see it.
Okay. Well, listen, one more question before we move on. But, you know, the America right now, the US has got a lot of young, very talented, up-and-coming superstars or potential superstars with a lot of talent. You've got Jerome Ennis that's fighting this weekend. You've got Virgil Ortiz as well. You've got Teofimo Lopez. You've got Shakur Stevenson. You've got Ryan Garcia. You've got Javonte Davis. Like, out of all of those, Devin Haney, out of all of those guys there, which one of them, if you had to invest in one of them, just one, you had to pick one, who would you invest your money on to say they're going to go on to have the best career? It's a hard question.
It's a hard question, yeah.
But if you had a gun shed and you had to invest in one of those fighters, who would you go for?
You know what? I'd probably go for Shakur Stevenson, to be honest.
Yeah,
I mean, Javonte Davis, I would say, is more exciting to watch because he's got the sort of fight-ending power in either hand. So his fights are always going to be exciting, aren't they? He's the kind of guy that can come from behind, as he's done in previous fights, and just take a man out completely. So that makes him compelling viewing. You've got some other great fighters, or potentially greater fighters there. Teofimo, Devin Haney, as we said. You know, I mean, even Chris Colbert looks like a good fighter. But to me, there's an aura around Shakur Stevenson, man, that just looks like he's going to be a special generational fighter. And I just think that. So if I was going to invest my money, I would probably invest it in Shakur Stevenson.
Harvey says here, Shakur is a pound-for-pound star. One name that you didn't mention there, who's actually fighting this weekend, is Jerome Ennis.
Yeah. I do like the look of Jerome. The only problem I've got with Jerome Ennis is that he not seem to be promoted that well, is he?
Well, he's fighting this weekend. I ain't heard nothing about it.
Yeah, it's gone completely under the radar. And then even the choice of opponent, Thomas DULORME. Come on, bro. You know what I mean? Thomas DULORME did his best work at junior welterweight, and that was quite a few years ago now. Yeah. I mean, that fight to me it does nothing apart from maybe providing a highlight reel knockout. It's not really going to do anything for his career. He's going to get some work. He's going to get, I would imagine, some decent money from it, and he's going to get a highlight reel knockout. So I guess, those are three. But from a fan's point of view, man, I mean, I'm a bit disappointed.
It's a step down from his last opponent for sure, Sergey Lipinets. But I mean, it could be just a stay busy fight. Do you know what I mean? Like, he just wanted to get out there before the end of the year. He's young. He's young. He wants to get out there and fight. Not always the best guys are available. Should we give him credit for just staying active? Because we do ask these guys to stay active.
What, staying active in that Canelo Avni Yildirim way?
Well, we go back to that. I mean, we moan when they don't fight, and we moan when they do fight. Do you know what I mean?
I hear you, but I think they can be a bit more creative with the opponents, man. Seriously, welterweight is a division where there's millions of welterweights all over the world, and I'm sure they could have picked a far more creative opponent and more imaginative opponent than Thomas DULORME, who's basically washed up. And he's a guy that's fighting outside of his proper weight class, and a guy that's been around for a number of years. So that fight doesn't do anything for anyone, really. Apart from, like I said, stay busy, make a few bob, and you get your highlight reel knockout or stoppage at the end of it. So,
yeah, I mean, every time Thomas DULORME has stepped up, when you look at the likes of Terence Crawford, obviously he got stopped in that fight. Ugas, he lost that fight. Who else? There was Jesse Vargas. He drew that fight. I think that was a draw, wasn't it? But I mean, DULORME, when you look, I mean, I think his last two fights were losses as well. So he's on a bit of a losing streak. He's really going to be food for Jerome. That's probably why we ain't heard a lot about it this week.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a bit disingenuous because I would regard Boots Ennis as one of the best prospects in boxing today. You mentioned himself, Victor Ortiz, and alongside the likes of Shakur Stevenson and people like that. I mean, these are top prospects, man. These guys need to be in decent fights. I'm not saying that he's going to take on a killer, you know what I mean? Because, there is a bit of stay busy about it until he gets to fight for a world title. But there should be fights that will contribute to his development. I don't see him bashing up and then knocking out DULORME as contributing to his development. Yeah. Other than keeping him busy, I suppose.
So a routine win for Jerome Boots Ennis. I'm sure we'll be saying that, but hey, you never know, man. You never know.
You do.
So yeah, there's no chance of an upset. You're saying
no chance, man. You could quote me on that as well. I mean, I know I got the Fury Wilder wrong, but if I get this one wrong, man, I'm going to stop doing these podcasts.
Wow.
If Thomas DULORME legitimately beats Boots Ennis, and when I say legitimate, it's got to be legitimate. I don't mean like, Boots Ennis throws a left hook, dislocates his shoulder, and then they give Thomas DULORME the win by some kind of weird, injury. But I'm talking about legitimately beats him. Then seriously, it would be, for me, one of the biggest upsets ever in boxing.
My boy Harvey says here, I have no interest in this fight. He don't care. And Harvey, he's on this boxing thing. So, you know what I mean? He's
Yeah,
got no interest in it.
This is what I'm saying. Fights like DULORME do nothing really for Jerome Ennis other than those three things I've said.
Yeah.
Stay busy, get a bit of money, highlight reel knockout.
Yeah.
But he could have got all of those against a much better opponent.
Yeah. Conrad Boxing has said here, do you think, well, I'm going to answer this after I read it, but Conrad has said here, do you think Ennis is ready for Porter if he loses against Bud? Obviously, Sean Porter will be fighting Terence Crawford on the 20th of November. Now, Laurie said he thought Conor Benn would be ready for Porter. So I'm sure he'll think Ennis is ready for Porter. You did backtrack a little bit, though, on Conor Benn beating Porter. But listen, I think Ennis would be. I think he maybe one or two more for me before Porter. But we'll see how he looks against Bud. Yeah, maybe one more.
Porter way too much props, man. You know what I mean? To me, Ennis would smash him to pieces. You know what I mean? To me, seriously, I think that's the kind of guy I'd have liked to have seen Ennis in with.
You don't rate Porter, do you?
Yeah, I do, but I just think he's very limited, bro. Like, you know what I mean? And he just fights the same way all the time. He's just going to come.
Who's washed Sean Porter? Who's really put a beating on Sean Porter? No one. And look,
no, you're right there. But I think a young, hungry Boots Ennis or Virgil Ortiz or one of them would do that to him because of the way he fights and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, I respect his toughness and his gameness and his heart. But skills, nah, man, I don't see too much skill there. Despite what Sean Porter and his dad, they like to mesmerize us with all these words and tell us about what they're working on in training. And yeah, it sounds great, but then every time we see Sean Porter in a fight, it's always the same thing. I've been watching this guy for years. And that's why I may have jumped the gun a bit before, but I was suggesting that maybe Conor Benn would do well against him. Boxing-wise, he would do well against him, but whether he's got the physicality yet and the experience, maybe not, which is why I reined my opinions in on it a little. But Boots Ennis, on the other hand, is a completely different fighter to Conor Benn.
Well, Mohammed Zishan here, he says that Sean Porter would That's what he thinks, man. We've got to respect his opinion.
Mohammed, man, I think you're so wrong on that, man. Seriously. What makes him think that? What, just because Sean Porter would come forward and take a zillion punches and keep coming?
Experience, maybe. You look at the guys who he's been in with, Keith Thurman, you know, Danny Garcia. He's been in there with Errol Spence. He's given a good account of himself in all of those, won some of them, lost a couple of them, but he's given a good account of himself in those fights, man. Been a top tier welterweight for years, Sean Porter.
And he's not getting any better, is he?
Well, I mean, Ennis, his biggest test so far was Sergey Lipinets. Let's be real. As talented as he is, and I am a big fan of him.
And he absolutely beat the crap out of Lipinets as well.
But you'd pick Porter to beat Lipinets as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would.
Listen, I think he could beat Porter now. I'm not saying he don't, but I'm just saying that
he certainly could beat Porter now, right now, tomorrow. In fact, I think I've seen somewhere where Porter said he wouldn't want that fight. Haven't I heard him say it? I'm sure I heard him say that.
He might have said that, but he might have just said that as because he don't want, like, he thinks there's nothing in it for him. Probably saying that.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
Listen, you could be overrating Porter and I could be underrating him. But honestly, I seriously believe that Ennis would do a number on Porter. Whether he stops him or whatever, but he would definitely beat him. It could be one of those where he just beats Porter up for the majority of the fight.
Yeah.
Or it could be one of them where he stops him late. I don't know. Because I honestly think that Bud's going to stop Porter. I just think that Porter will start fast as he always does. He'll come charging forward. He does have fairly good head movement, to be fair. He does have good athleticism. But fight after fight with Sean Porter, I see the same mistakes being made. I see him running into punches. I see a kind of reckless abandon with his boxing, man. And I just think that when you step up to those quality levels, man, I think he gets exposed. And I think it's his physicality that's kept him to where he is right now. I don't think it's his skills level or his punching power. He's not a big puncher.
Yeah.
And then you're fighting a guy that's, say he was fighting Ennis. He's fighting a guy that's younger than him. It's debatable whether he would be stronger than Ennis. He might have that kind of physical, you know what I mean, strength in terms of, you know, being that immovable object. But I would argue that Ennis probably has more what we call dynamic strength than a guy than Porter.
Yeah.
Which in dynamic strength, let's be honest, is more applicable to boxing than just brute strength. So, you know, we saw that last week with Shakur Stevenson. People were saying before the fight, Herring, full-blown man, bigger guy, physically stronger. You know what I mean? Maybe if they went to the weight room, he might be able to bench more than Shakur. But in terms of the action in the ring, it was Shakur that looked stronger because he was more gifted dynamically rather than Herring's strength. You know what I mean? And that's the type of strength you need in boxing.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Nathan says here, Jamal James, he's on the card as well. He's going to be facing Radzaf Batayev. That's a damn solid fight, he says. He said he thinks Ennis stops DULORME in the mid to late rounds. And Nathan has said here, Jose Cepeda is on the bill. He's fighting Vargas, and that's a good fight this weekend as well. So I didn't even, you know what, I didn't even really clock that those fights were on. But Nathan's more tuned in than I am at the moment, it seems.
Yeah, I heard about the Cepeda Vargas as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, this week's kind of flown by. You know what? The majority of people this week have been talking about the AJ interview. I mean, that's really where a lot of there is a DAZN card this weekend as well, but a lot of people are talking about that AJ interview. It was out on Tuesday, and it was the first in-depth interview that AJ has had since he's lost to Alexander Usyk. Kugan Cassius from IFL hosting the interview. Now, did you manage to see it, and what did you think of it?
Yeah, I did see it, and it's certainly garnered a lot of headlines, man. You know, it's a shout out to my boy Kugan, who I used to work with on IFL, actually. He got the scoop, and it seems to have gone viral. There were some very interesting comments on there, some very revealing comments on there. Some of the interviews not gone down too well. So, for example, I've seen a lot of the American youth channels, in particular some of the black channels, notably the LDBC guys, who I'm sure you're aware of, Darryl, and I'm sure many of your viewers are aware. They had a real problem with AJ referencing people like Nicky Barnes and Big Meech and BMF and guys like that. They're saying, what's that got to do with boxing? And I do understand where they're coming from with that. And then some of the other stuff I found a bit weird, like him inviting Tyson Fury into camp with him and stuff like that. We've heard him say stuff like that before, which I've always thought.
That's tongue in cheek, though, isn't it?
Well, I don't know with AJ. I don't know. He said it a few times now, isn't he?
Yeah.
So I don't know if it is tongue in cheek. He seems to be serious with him.
Do you know what the most concerning? Do you know what the most concerning part of that interview was for me?
Yeah.
It was when he said he got into the ring against Alexander.
Oh,
Usyk,
right, yeah.
And then he asked Clifton Mitchell, "What do you think of Usyk, man? Well, what do you think of it?" When I heard that, I was like, "What? I didn't know that." But like, it was a good interview. I enjoyed it. I didn't learn too much, but I still enjoyed the interview. It was good to hear AJ in depth because he was definitely more open and animated than we've seen him before. So that was good. But yeah, that part of the interview concerned me when he said, like, yeah, I asked Clifton Mitchell, like, what did he think of Usyk? That strikes me as someone, and listen, I'm not no psychologist or nothing like that, but it just strikes me as someone that's not, does he believe in himself as much as he should be? As much as his talent warrants? Does he believe in himself? Does he have a confidence issue? Because why would you ask Clifton Mitchell? I was just so baffled by that.
That was totally bizarre. And I'm at a loss to explain that to me. I really don't. I mean, why would Clifton know any more about? You've spent 12 weeks of a training camp preparing to fight this guy. And from what I've seen and what I've heard, Robert McCracken is one of those guys. He's very diligent, and his attention to detail apparently spot on. I've heard Carl Froch talk about that before. I've even heard AJ talk about that before as well. So you would imagine that you've had 12 weeks to prepare. Your trainer, who, as we said, is diligent, would have prepared you in all the things you need to know about Usyk. And yet you're turning around and asking Clifton Mitchell.
That was bizarre.
Bizarre. And yeah, AJ, I don't know, he's quite a complex character, AJ is, man.
Mm.
I mean, it's a weird one because he has this very sort of carefully constructed, some would say, corporate image. But if you kind of strip away at that, you kind of see a guy that's quite vulnerable, that's quite withdrawn and not very, as you use the words, not very confident, not very sure of himself. So he's, you know what I mean? You couldn't imagine Tyson Fury walking into a ring and asking somebody, how do I fight this guy, would you?
No.
You know what I mean? And maybe that's the difference between the two of them.
Yeah.
And why Tyson Fury is seen as a #1 heavyweight in the world at the moment and not AJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, bizarre.
Let's go to some comments here. Got a few people that have got their opinions on the interview as well. Harvey has said, I already summed up my thoughts to Daryl on Twitter, but I'll say it again. AJ sounds lost and confused. Sean Ryan says here, AJ needs one voice. He only needs one. He shouldn't have multiple voices in the corner. Conrad has said here, in my opinion, AJ should pick a new trainer and fully dedicate to him. Whatever strategy he picks, he must 100% go for it. Sean Ryan says here, I love the Shane McGuigan interview with Seconds Out. There's too many voices. He needs to put his faith in one trainer and believe. So quite a few people saying the same sort of thing. Him needing one voice in the corner. Him seeming a bit lost and confused. Are we being too picky, or do you think everyone here's got a point? What they're saying?
I think they've all got a point, to be fair, because all of those points that have been raised there, I've sort of thought them over in my head as well. I mean, he's still not even announced which trainer he's going with.
Well, he hasn't even confirmed it yet.
He's still not confirmed whether he is going to have one of those guys or whether he's going to stick with Rob McCracken. Eddie Hearn's come out and muddied the waters even further by saying that, you know, he's just gone out there. He's not really. It's a bit of a mess. I mean, listen, man, this rematch will be upon us before you know it. You know what I mean? We're nearly in November now. The rematch is in March.
Yeah.
So what is he going to do? I mean, even if he has a new trainer, is he going to go over there for how many months it is? Is the new supposed new trainer going to come over and work here? And if he does, is he going to be working alongside Rob McCracken? Is Rob McCracken going to be alongside the new trainer? I don't know, man. It's baffling.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this. I did like he was a lot more open than he normally is. And he, you know what I mean? He was I did like I said, I didn't learn too much from it, but I thought that it was good. Like, you know, he seems to have the mentality now that when he does go into the rematch with Usyk, he knows that he can't just sit back and try and box pretty. He knows that, but I think we all knew that anyway. Yeah. And I also liked him checking Bob Arum as well, because Bob Arum, as much as I like him and respect him, he did need to get checked. Do you know what I mean? He's been saying a lot of shit about AJ in the past, and AJ he approached that. You know, he said what he had to say. But yeah, I finished the interview. I was just like, I don't really know what I've learned here. I've just like, it was a good interview. No disrespect to anyone. Definitely good for everybody. But I'm not sure what I really took from that. Like you said, he's not necessarily said he's got a new trainer. He hasn't announced it. Do you know what I mean? He hasn't announced if he's leaving Rob McCracken and he's looking for a new trainer. It was just more like there were still some questions there after the interview that wasn't answered.
Absolutely. And that interview, although you say it was quite revealing and so forth, it kind of threw up more questions than answers, didn't it? So whilst it was a good interview and it was revealing in parts, there are also other parts of the interview that you're kind of left scratching your head thinking, well, what's going on? You know what I mean? Yeah. So he is a bit of a complex man. And I think people who know him will tell you that. I remember when he first turned professional and speaking to some people inside boxing, and he was described as quite a different character then, which is why I think that over the years, he's had that PR machine create a persona and he's kind of gone with it. He's not really been allowed to be himself. Maybe that was why. Maybe they saw early that he's a guy that needs to be nurtured in a certain way. I don't know. Because when he has,
fair. I mean, everyone is different, you know.
Because let's be honest, it's the first interview like this he's given for a while. And certain things come out of this interview that you thought, where's that come from? You know what I mean? So maybe that's why previously he's not given all these types of interviews.
Yeah.
So
go to some more comments here. Harvey says Joshua's camp seems all over the place, in my opinion. He hinted at conflict in camp multiple times, and I think him asking Clifton is because he doesn't have confidence in his team.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Because clearly, if you were confident, you wouldn't be saying anything of the sort to Clifton. I mean, I kind of picked up on it when I saw him on the way into the ring, taking selfies with fans on the way into the ring. I was a little bit sort of surprised at that. I was a little bit taken aback, to be honest. Weren't you?
A little bit, yeah.
I was like, who does that? You know what I mean? Like, this is a massive fight. You should be focused.
I think that woman was someone that he knew's mum or something. And he
Yeah,
spotted her.
no, you could do that after. That's the sort of picture that you take, isn't it? When you've just knocked the guy out and you're coming back from the fight and everyone wants so. That is when you take selfies like that, isn't it? Not on the way into the ring. I've never seen a fighter do that yet. Have you? Not at that level, anyway. Not boxing that type of an opponent.
Yeah.
I thought that was bizarre in itself. And then the whole performance was just a little bit off to me. So maybe confidence is an issue. He certainly didn't come across as very sort of confident and believing in himself at times in that interview when asked about the rematch. So yeah, I don't know, man. Strange one. But interesting all the same. Like I said, he's an interesting, complex character, AJ is.
Conrad says here, AJ suggesting that one of the US trainers should come over and train under McCracken makes me think that he really needs a reality check about McCracken, he says.
I suspect
that's not realistic anyway. It's not realistic.
Yeah, I suspect that AJ's a little conflicted. He realizes that McCracken is a very good trainer. McCracken's done a lot for him. And I understand it. He probably doesn't want to dispense with McCracken totally. But he feels that he has to in order to further his career. But he's hesitant about making that final push to say, look, I'm going with somebody completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what you know, people might find it strange that I'm using Tyson Fury as an example, but I will do. Tyson Fury, after that first fight with Wilder, he got a draw. Many people thought that he should have won, but he got the draw. Okay. I personally thought he was lucky to get a draw, but anyway, we forget that for now. He got the draw. He realized he could have done better. What did Tyson Fury do? And bearing in mind as well that Ben Davison was his good friend, a guy that he'd credited with getting him back on track after suffering his mental problems. He dispensed with the services of Ben Davison, hooked up with Sugar Hill, and the rest is history. Yeah. And now, don't forget, he hadn't lost to Wilder, had he? He just, obviously, when he appraised that fight in the cold light of day, he probably thought, if I'm going to beat Wilder and beat him convincingly, I need a new approach. He did exactly that. He brought in Sugar Hill, and it's paid dividends. Now, AJ is coming off the back of let's face it, a very disappointing performance. He's lost his belt. He wants to get his belt back. He's definitely toying with the idea of a new trainer, but yet he doesn't seem to make that definitive move.
Yeah.
On all this time is running. So, you know what I mean? It's just confusing, bro.
Mohammed Zishan here in the chat. He's I'll go back to this question because he's put another question here. And he said, how was he lucky to get a draw, Laurie? He's talking about Fury and Wilder won. And I agree with him. I agree with Mohammed. He weren't lucky. He should have won that. He weren't lucky to get the draw against Wilder.
Go back and look at that first fight with Wilder and examine the count. But anyway, we don't go there. Wilder.
Oh, so you're talking about because of the knockdown. You're not talking about because of the rounds and stuff. You're talking about because of the knockdown. And
yeah, that's right. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, I've always said that, and I will maintain it.
So you're not talking about the cards.
Fury was fortunate not to get counted out. But having said that, it is what it is. What happened, and since then he's proved himself to be the better man. I was just talking about that specific fight. But like I said, my point was that after that fight, Fury, in the cold light of day, analyzed that fight, and he felt that he could do a lot better and that he needed to do better. So what he did was he dispensed with his trainer, Ben Davison, who was a close personal friend at the time. So my point is that Tyson Fury still had that within him to be decisive and definitive and get rid of Ben Davison and bring somebody else in. And Joshua seems to be the opposite, whereby he's prevaricating, isn't he? About, am I going to get a new trainer? Is he going to come over here? Am I going to go over there? He needs to be definitive. As I said, time is running. The exercise, the rematch clause has been exercised. He needs to get to work, man.
Javier Roscoe here says Eddie Reynoso is the perfect trainer and he will get good sparring with Frank Sanchez, a guy that you've been craving about over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, but as I said to you last week, will the dynamics of that work? If you're Frank Sanchez, do you want AJ rocking up and stealing the attention of
Ruiz
as well? Yeah. How will they feel about that?
Yeah. Mohammed says here as well, thoughts on Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury. Do you think it will happen? Now, Dillian Whyte hosted a press conference with Eddie Hearn today. It was about 15, 20 minutes long. They were talking about the injury that obviously prevented Dillian Whyte from fighting Otto Wallin this weekend. And they were also talking about the Tyson Fury situation, saying that they're ready. Well, not ready, but they'll be in line and that they're prepared for this to go, for the order to be made for them to fight. So I didn't learn nothing new from that either, to be fair. But Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury, do you think it will happen? I really hope it does. But Harvey thinks he'll be elevated to franchise champion. I really hope it's not the case. But I'm seeing more leaks about that could happen. I'm really hoping we do get Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury, man. I really want to see it next year. And do you think it will happen? I'm skeptical. I'm on the fence, man, because I just don't know with Tyson Fury. I can't predict the guy. So I'm just 50-50 on it.
Likewise, I really want the fight to happen. I think it would be a good fight. The build-up to the fight would be incredible. All British clash. You know what I mean? The attention of the world would be on that fight, never mind domestically. But like you, Daryl, I just don't know if it will materialize that way. Tyson Fury, he's got a history of going missing after he fights. And, the boxing politics, and then you throw in this franchise situation as well. You could see where it might not happen, but I really would like that fight to happen.
I really hope it happens.
Great for boxing, especially British boxing.
But I just can't trust Fury. I just don't. Everyone's saying it. Dillian Whyte was saying it today. It was just like, look, I don't even know if Fury, what he's going to do tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? He could retire. He could just go on a binge. He could do what he wants. Do you know what I mean? We just don't know. So I really hope it does happen, but I just don't know.
I wouldn't put money on it, but I hope it does. Put it that way.
Harvey says as well, I still see Fury being elevated to franchise. Mohammed says here, Fury said he wants Usyk next, and his dad doesn't want him to fight Dillian Whyte. Well, his dad, just whatever, man. You know what I mean?
Who cares what his dad wants? His dad didn't want him to fight Wilder.
Yeah.
No sooner had he knocked out Wilder, then the dad was saying, oh, I told everybody that my son would do this to Wilder. So I don't take too much seriously what John Fury has to say about anything, to be honest.
Conrad says here, would you be mad if Fury goes franchise and fights AJ instead of Dillian? Look, I just don't want that franchise thing anyway, no matter what. I just think that's bad for boxing, that franchise belt. So I would be mad. I don't want to see him get elevated to nothing. Why? Because you defeated Deontay Wilder twice, whatever. Like, nah, you should be fighting your mandatories like everybody else, man. So fight Dillian Whyte.
I've always had the impression that Tyson Fury wants to fight AJ. Obviously, it's a big money fight, but he's always talking about that fight, isn't he? And not so much about other fights. So you don't know. I mean, I get the impression that Tyson Fury is not particularly keen on fighting Usyk. But if you mention AJ, it's almost like he salivates at the mouth, isn't it? Yeah. So I don't know. He's not. He doesn't seem to be overly keen on fighting Dillian either, for whatever reason. I'm not for 1 minute suggesting he's scared or ducking Dillian, but he's never really spoke openly about fighting Dillian, has he? Or Usyk.
Not really, no. Definitely not Usyk.
Focus his attention a lot more on AJ. So,
yeah. I mean, time will tell. But I'm like you, man. I hope that we do get to see Dillian Whyte and Tyson Fury fight each other, and that it needs to happen. You know what I mean? It needs to happen, man. There is a show this week. Before we quickly move on to our next topic, are you going to be tuning in? You know, the Cameron McGee, Babbage Molina, the DAZN show that obviously Dillian Whyte was supposed to be headlining against Otto Wallin, but he's not. Do any of those fights? Are you looking forward to any of them?
Listen, I'll always watch boxing on TV because I'm a fan. I'm a committed fan. I'm a passionate fan. I'm even possibly a nerdy fan. And those fights that you've just mentioned are going to test my nerdy fan status to the absolute max. To say I'm excited about
Richards on the bill,
I would be lying. But then in the absence of not too much else to do on a Saturday evening, the football would be finished, obviously. Then, yeah, I'll watch it. Am I excited about those fights? No. It's me being honest. You know what I mean? I mean, I see Babbage trying to hype up the Molina thing, saying how he hates him and this and that. I can see right through that, as I'm sure you can and most everybody else. Let's face it, it's an easy night's work for Babbage. And as soon as Molina gets hit, I think he'll be looking for the canvas, as he did with one or two other fights that he's been involved with when he's come over here. Most recently, the Fabio Wardley fight, when he was actually doing well against Fabio Wardley, and then took the canvas route out as soon as he got hit back by a punch that still to this day, I'm not sure if he even connected properly. Yeah. So given that type of previous form, I see this one with Babbage being no different.
Let's go to the comments here. We've got quite a few. Sean Ryan has said here, Fury versus Del Boy. We'll probably see that. Francisco said here.
Already, so I hope not.
Francisco says, I've been such a good commentator on this show, and since I'm of Mexican descent, I'm going to have Suleiman declare me the Boxing Lowdown's franchise commentator. Listen, don't put it past him, man. You know, Suleiman, he could do anything nowadays. Like, I wouldn't even rule it out, mate. Harvey says here, do you think that Fury and White could sell out Wembley? Good question. Would it sell out Wembley?
Yeah, Carl Froch about that. 80,000 at Wembley. I think you'd have to ask Carl Froch how that's done. Probably not a sellout, but I would imagine it will do good numbers, and the fight will generate a lot of interest. It's a natural fight. The two guys don't like each other, and both those two guys have that ability to sell a fight because of their characters. So there would be a lot of interest around it.
Maybe the undercard might have a say.
It could be one of those fights. Certainly, judging by Tyson Fury's last couple of appearances, it could be quite explosive while it lasts.
Maybe the undercard. Maybe it could depend on the undercard if that sold out Wembley or not. It could depend on that.
Well, to be honest, I don't think undercards sell fights of that nature. To be honest.
Yeah, but if it had a strong undercard, it might get more people. Do you know what I mean? And then it could all of a sudden sell it out. It's a tough one.
I've never really bought into that. You know, I think.
What, you don't think a strong undercard helps? You don't think a strong undercard helps push tickets?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I think the main draw is the one that's going to pull the people in, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, so. But yeah, I'd go and watch it. I'd go.
Yeah. Conrad has said here, I can't stand that franchise thing either, but all I want are the big fights to happen anyway. For real, I think we can all definitely agree on that. We all want to see the big fights happen, and Fury against White. Let's just make it happen, man. Do you know what I mean? I'd still have Fury as the favorite, but I want to see it because you never know.
Absolutely. Actually, we're approaching that mark where I'm going to have to head out shortly. But
last thing before you go, just quickly your thoughts on Claressa Shields and her losing her second pro MMA bout before you go.
Well, we said, didn't we, Darryl? We both agreed on this, that I thought her pursuing a career in MMA at the same time as she was doing boxing to be folly. I wanted her to concentrate on a boxing career. Once that's out of the way, you can do as much MMA as you want. I just thought it was a bit of a gimmick, a publicity thing, and it seems to have backfired, man. I mean, Claressa's probably not going to want to admit it, man, but this is not good for her brand. You know what I mean? Especially when you call yourself the GOAT and everything else, and a large part of her whole image and persona is her being unbeaten. Now she's been beaten. It's kind of going to look a little...
Not in boxing, though.
Not in boxing, but you know what I'm saying. It's a loss, and you know she's going to get a certain level of ridicule, which you would expect on social media. And Clarissa, knowing the type of individual she is, she's probably going to bite at some of that. I just didn't think it was a great look. I don't know how much money she's getting paid for her MMA fights, but I just wanted her to focus on boxing. Now, the positive that might come out of this is that she might heed the advice that people like me and you and one or two others have been saying to her, which is, look, just focus on your boxing. Or, you know what I mean, the headstrong Clarissa, which we've seen over the years, might say, listen, man, I don't care what you say. I'm going to pursue my career in MMA. I want to be a two combat sport champion. And listen, man, she's not going to achieve that in MMA issue. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Because that girl that she lost to yesterday is not highly regarded. Even in the first fight that she won, she didn't over-impress. I think some of the boxing people were impressed with that first win she had in MMA. But if you looked at some of what some of the analysts of MMA, some of their journalists had said about it, they were left far from impressed with her performance. So yeah, she needs to focus on boxing, man. And there's some very credible opponents out there for her, including one in this country, Savannah Marshall, who I'm sure is having a good snigger at her losing yesterday as well. So definitely. My message to Clarissa is, listen, you gave it a shot, fair enough. Get back to boxing, focus on that, man. Boxing is a fairly short shelf life. Do everything you can in boxing. If you want to go back to MMA after, then fair enough. But let's just do the boxing for now.
Well, Clarissa Shields will be returning to the boxing ring in December over here in Birmingham, actually. Well, not here, but in the UK in Birmingham. So, yeah, that's her and Savannah Marshall will be on the same bill there. So, yeah, let's see her get back to boxing, man. But listen, we're going to wrap it up today. A shorter show than normal. Laura, you got to head out. Where are you going, man?
I've got to contribute to what we call our daily news show today on AFTV, which is coming up in exactly 7 minutes' time. So I'm going to rush away from here now. Yeah. But listen, man, thanks once again for the opportunity to come on this platform and engage my passion and indulge me in that way. So thanks for that. Just want to say to everybody out there watching, man, like, share, subscribe if you haven't done already. Share this video. Share it to your friends, family, associates. Get them to subscribe to. We've got to get Daryl up to this 1,000 mark, man. You know, Daryl's, you're like that fighter, man. Everyone don't want to fight you, man. You know, they can see, you know what I mean? They can see your abilities and stuff like that. And you're just not quite getting that recognition that you deserve. But you know what? It will come. Yeah. Probably by next week. I reckon you'll do it by next week. I
don't think so, but we'll see.
Now listen, you're sounding like AJ now, man. You know what I mean? He's a confidence. Yeah. You know what I mean? Invoke the spirit of Nicky Barnes and Big Meech and Frankie Lucas and them, man. You know,
it is the sub curse, man. Conrad, I've been on 9:30 for like 2 weeks, man.
Yeah, man.
2 weeks I've been on that. It's a curse, but we'll get there.
You know what it is? You probably need that big fight to get you over it. And next week we got the Caleb Plant upset of Canelo. Oh. But yeah, the Caleb Plant Canelo fight, or the Canelo Caleb Plant fight, is coming up next week, and there'll be a lot of interest around that fight. And I reckon after that fight, you will hit the magical 1,000.
Well, big up to everyone for all the kind comments, man. Really appreciate you guys, man. And Laurie, thank you for the words as well. I'll let you run up and do your News Daily show. And listen, man, big up to everybody. We'll catch you guys next week. I'll be dropping some more videos over the weekend and over next week as well. So look out for them, and we'll catch up with you guys soon, man. Have a good evening to everyone.
Explosive preview of the Canelo Caleb Plant fight. I think a few people are going to be interested to hear what I've got to say next week. So tune in.
I think they will be, man. I think they will be. Have a good evening, everyone.
And the new